So by the time Mix come on,
Yeah.
I should be there.
Good. We have a special
So I'll be
guest.
able to put.
Yeah.
Huh?
We have a special guest in the person of Mr. Winford James
Yeah. What time he's coming on?
from 5.
5.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'll be. Yeah. So we need to discuss with him. A number of things. Surely his appointment will come up. Like politics.
Yeah.
I already stated that I had no problem with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, we have other political matters to discuss.
Yeah.
So we see how that goes, including what transpired on Sunday.
Yeah.
How
Good.
that went, how
Mm-hmm.
people feel about it, and so on.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what are his thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and what it means for politics going forward.
Hmm.
State of the economy,
Hmm.
uh, the increase in bread.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we didn't know Ukraine was this big player. We've been saying that for some time, but
I tell you.
I mean, I don't think what is happening in Ukraine should push us up to how much it is, a 33% increase.
I tell you.
That's high. That's high. That's abusive and wicked.
Hmm.
I mean, you could put anyhow anybody wants to take that.
Hmm.
Then that's something the government ought to subsidize. That shouldn't even come out.
That's right.
You follow what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
you have people right now,
Mm-hmm.
right, who is underwater to
Yeah.
survive,
Yeah.
completely underwater.
Hmm.
And bread is one of those things that you're going to use all the time.
Hmm.
In economics, I would say it's a staple,
Yes.
and you will need that. And to live,
Yeah. Yeah.
some people don't take bread for breakfast alone.
That's right.
Some people have to eat bread for lunch and all and dinner,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
Because they can't afford something else. And they're going to tell them that going up. But that to the trees to them.
Hmm.
Now they'll come again and get a big old talk. Oh, bread only gone up by 85 cents. So it gone
Yeah.
up by $2.20.
Hmm.
That's what I'll come and tell you.
Hmm.
But this is, I tell you, this
Outrageous.
is just nakedly ridiculous now.
I tell you, man.
Yeah.
You know what? What I find funny about it is that I remember while I was going to school, I keep hearing that we get wheat and stuff from Canada and the United States. They have big wheat fields too. Why it
Yeah.
is we are being forced to understand that it is because of the Ukraine so far east. I mean, I don't understand that, and I think that's just a means of keeping us in a kind of zone to make us feel that everything will go up because of that war.
But what would happen? Yeah. Once I could find something to blame for
Yeah,
the harsh and wicked decisions, they'll
hmm,
blame that.
exactly.
Says not us. That's the situation we want us to do.
Hmm,
That's old talk. What we wanted to do is manage.
that's
What we
right.
wanted to do is manage. Just as situations will change, and when situations change, plans change. We know that.
Hmm.
What would happen also as situation change and it changes plans, as a good manager, you will change with the times and change your plans too.
Exactly.
But every time you alter your plans, it cannot be for the worst of the people.
Hmm.
They say,
Yeah,
look at this happening now.
yeah,
This is going to hit the people that way. So if this is going to go up, we have to find a way to reduce the price and that, which is a substitute.
yes,
You understand? Let's start to bring in more of this and make it significantly less. The government would invest in that, since we can have control over that on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, we'll start to market. The need for wheat is less to
yeah,
get it to be less.
yes,
So you educate the people and they give them a substitute, an option. We just sit down in office. Well, it's going up, it's going up. What do you do? Go up to the children, go up. I mean, come on, man. That's the kind of talk you will hear.
hmm,
That's it. And they think they're the best managers.
yes,
But, people down in South the other day, they didn't feel that way.
hmm,
Wherever they match in Tobago, they didn't feel that way because this is just not management.
that's right.
This is just not management. This is poor reactiveness. Poor reactiveness. Poor reactiveness. Something happened. Well, what are we gonna do? Well, react. Go before Mike and tell them what the situation is. That we have no control over that. That lazy man thing.
Yeah,
That is lazy man thing. You're supposed to come out and say, we saw that and we know how it will impact the poor in this country,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And we decided immediately, You understand?
Hmm.
To do X, Y, and whatever else to cushion the blow for the small man. You get that? You might get at a stock, but you wouldn't be experiencing that as a genuine experience to say, well, what is being said is what I'm experiencing. No, you will hear that.
Yeah.
But then what is happening would be hugely inconsistent with it. And that is a sad, sad state of affairs.
True.
Because you must know things like gas, sugar, flour, those things must have the heavy hand of the government in it. That is to make sure the poor people look forward to the poor. Some of them politicians look forward to the poor to make children just to replace them as servants of other people. You know?
Yes, yes,
So
yeah.
the rich stay rich. You watch the poor, you have a hospital, poor situation. Everybody going to the hospital again. What do you call it? Cesarean, I think it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? You're applying that to all of them to limit how much you can make, all that kind of talk you hear in and around,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
No proper health care. People suffering bad, right? And if they make 2 or 3 children the poor, your system is designed to make sure they can't do any better than the parents.
I tell you.
So what do you think they're going to do? To do what the parents were doing, or to go and participate in something that will cause the politician to spend one set of money to fight crime. You understand?
Yeah.
So the poor, and it's a really terrible negative conditioning. And the people of this country must reject that. This is not what you want. This cannot be what you want in the form of governance. It cannot be it. This is nowhere close to it. You don't develop an expectation for improvement and betterment, and then you end up with this. You end up with this for a period of time. 3 years, 2 years. I mean, to stretch it, you might say 3.5 years. But you really don't want to go over that. We are into 7 years, and you would swear this is the first year.
Yes.
You'd swear this is the first year. So what have you done for the last 6? What have you done? And people must be able to stand up openly and fairly and deal with that. No wonder Mia Motley is becoming one of the greatest persons on the planet now.
Yes.
Wherever she goes, she's revered. Because in a little country, you listen to her and what she has been doing, it's consistent with her expressions.
Yes.
And you can see the genuineness in her when she speaks about the Bajan people. You can see passion in there for them.
Yes, yes.
Not old talk, not stupid talk, not nonsense talk, not rubbish talk.
True.
And you expect to give people that kind of talk, and then you're hoping to hear they say, I like that, boy, sound good. You have to earn that.
Yeah.
You have to earn that. When you fail, what would happen? You have people marching and moving motion. That's the outcome of that.
Yeah.
That would affect our party in the future.
Big time.
And I'm saying stand up and manage. You have to reach a place where you have to manage the situation with what you have. That is what is required. Use the teeth you have. What you want to do? Wait till you have every single teeth you need. Use the teeth you have. Make it work. Gas up. Everything else up. Now you're going to flour. What will be next? What will be next? Water? It's just been ridiculous. Just downright ridiculous. And who will believe? This government is 2 budgets away from spending $500 billion. Who will believe that? $500 billion, you know, man.
I'm telling you.
$500 billion, you know. $500 billion, you know. Where the hell that money gone?
That is real money, you know.
All that money spent. No other government has spent that kind of money. They're in their way in 2 budget time to spend that. The aggregate of it. And the country, anywhere you go, it's looking like part of the labas. It's nasty. The roads bad. People not working. Today, A young fella asked me, I buying something by shop, right?
Yeah.
A youth man in uniform, you know. He said, Mister, you have a $5 change? Well, if you hear that, what do you think happening?
Yes, he's coming to ask you for $5.
He either want five singles,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and
Yeah.
he'll give you his $5 if you give him five singles. You know
Right.
what I mean? Change, eh? He
Yeah,
asking
yeah,
for
yeah.
that. So I
Yeah.
said, let me see. So I take out, I said, now about he had the whole $5. The fella take it and take it out my hand because we up on my hand. Like
Yes.
if I was giving it to him. He
Yeah.
take it and turn around and start to shop at my money, you know. I said, as the Lord is my father and witness, I telling you. I
Yeah.
mean, look where we reach. A
Yeah.
young, decent fella in uniform, you know.
Hmm.
I said, wait now, he asked me for $5 or he asked me for a change. He
Yeah.
said, no, I wanted $5 to buy something to eat.
Oh
I said,
Lord.
come on. I
Yeah.
said, take it easy, big man. Take it easy. I said, that had to be the new way. That had to be the new way.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't let the same thing happen to you twice.
No, no,
Somebody
no.
asked me again and I had to really dial into that conversation, you know.
Yeah. I tell you.
Yeah, but nah, and that is where people have reached in this country, and in particular the African community. They
Mhm.
have been escorted into being conditioned to do the meaning jobs only, not
Yeah.
to aspire for anything, and
Mm-mm.
and tell yourself, look to one or two persons as the way long ago people looked to Eric Williams and A&I Robinson.
Yeah.
Once they're knowledgeable and they're bright, you know, it represents a community.
Mm.
People in doing that today, and to begin with, it had nobody on the stage that can represent us in such a way again.
No,
None,
none.
none. So to forget it. If you want people to look at you that way, some of your utterances, it will be hard for them to remove from their minds.
Hmm.
So no, forget that. Forget that.
Hmm.
You're not a maverick. You're not clever. No brilliance,
Hmm.
right? I mean, there's just so many no's around what has been going on in this country. And there's one set of people benefiting. People spoke about what happening on the airport up there now with
Yeah.
certain restaurants,
Yeah.
right? Every dollar, every investment is
Mm-hmm.
only one set of people.
Yeah.
One set of people the government policy is looking out for. One
Yes.
set of people.
Mm-hmm.
One set of people.
You see where they have
And one
the
set of
local
people
food.
the policy not catering for,
No, where they have
except
the
to
local
squeeze
food court.
them.
Yeah, where they have the local food court at the airport. Is when you leave and you will see that.
Yeah. Who going quiet down there? When you go to the airport to meet people,
Yeah.
who going quiet down there with all honesty?
Yeah.
You got to pick up someone, first of all, you don't want to go into park
Mm-hmm.
to pay all that money.
No.
So you're lapping like a bird.
Yes.
You don't
Yeah.
have no time. You understand what I'm saying? So you're not
Mm-hmm.
stopping down there. That's one negative thing. Two,
Yeah.
up there is always very disorganized,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
you're going to lap. Sometimes you're staying on the outstretch, and while you're there, one
Yeah.
of the custom officers come and charge you
Yeah.
for parking up at the side,
Yes, it's true.
right? So
Yeah.
it's not the most pleasant a place to be. It's a place you love to leave quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Quickly, it doesn't encourage people to stay around there. So how those people down in the back they will make money,
Hmm.
but up in front
I
where
tell you.
everybody is,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh my dear me, and people look at that and think all is right, you know, all
Yeah.
is well.
Yeah.
You know, my co-host on a Monday say the only thing she could see that could justify that behavior is someone is seeking validation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, the people, if someone is in search of validation, they know that person is in search of validation from them.
That's right.
And boy, to get it, it is as though we have to surrender the country.
Hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We have to surrender the country because one individual might be seeking validation from some people who will never so validate him.
Hmm.
As anytime he leaves the office, that's the end of the validation if he ever gets it.
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to hear talk down the road. He was not bright. He was a stupid man.
Hmm.
He ended up there. Look how he left his people. If I was there, you think you could have seen one of us looking so? He get in there and instead of helping people tell them about don't jackass the scene,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Don't jackass the scene. Don't do that, right? And not in your bedroom, right? I mean, oh God, no wonder they love me a Motley. I want to repeat that.
Yeah, it's true.
No wonder they love me. I mean, just think about it now, man. Just think about it. How we could end up with that no intellectualism, uh, nothing of an inspiring nature, food prices going up, crime out above and over everything else you could think about. The place looking as nasty as you can imagine. Wheat going up now, so bread will go up.
Yeah.
When bread go up, to cut your hair will go up. To wash your car will go up because they know how to get more money to meet that expense, that additional cost. Everything going up. Guyana about to pass us in development, and they only get gas and oil and gas yesterday.
Yeah.
And through the energy sector, they're about to pass us. You believe that? We closed down our refinery because we said it doesn't make sense. In other words, he said, for someone to keep that, it means that everything not working well in the head. Remember
Yes.
that? To keep that refinery, it means everything not working well in the head. Something of that nature was said. You close down the refinery now, how long? 2 years? 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
And now, the big news is that you're looking to you have a preferred person for the refinery so we can help us keep the price of gas down. I mean, we are the brightest set of people, and kill anyone dead. You made sense. To whom? To whom? I say to all listeners today, Trinidad and Tobago is in a major spot of bother. It is in a major spot of bother because it lacks the intelligence that is required to carry this country forward. And if the intelligence is not
Stand by, folks. Richard is probably in an area where the signal is very poor, so stand by.
that stupidity at its highest level. And I want to say to the poor people in this country, if I ever end up in the corridors of power in this country, the poor people of this country could look forward to the day in the sun, their day in the sun. They couldn't, because the emphasis would be to change them from what they are going through now, what their family went through for decades, and bring that to an end. You go to England, you see everybody living every corner, you look at every traffic light. You see, you know what you're seeing? You know what you're seeing? Tell you you're seeing. Porsche. Mercedes-Benz. Audi. Saab. Listen, a Saab is like a Rolls Royce, you know?
Yes.
Nice cars. Jaguars. Oh, my dear. Jaguars galore.
Yeah.
Everybody looking refined and decent. You know what I tell you there? England economy is doing well. England went through COVID too, you know. Everything going wrong with us. And when you try to talk to somebody, you know what I tell you? Well, we just came out of COVID. England ain't just come out of COVID too. France ain't just come out of COVID too. They like to tell us about other countries when they think the equation would favor the nonsense they want to express. Such as what you're hearing now. Here they're telling you, our wheat and our bread is still one of the lowest in the Caribbean. You heard that? But when people come to tell you, living in the Bahamas, Jamaica, Guyana, or Barbados, you know, it's much better and safer than here. You want to tell, well, go and live there.
Yes.
Go there.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to hear about them. I'm the prime minister for here.
Yeah.
Once the equation doesn't suit us, you don't want to hear about it. But somebody come up with something. It don't have to be true. That's another thing. It does not have to be the truth.
Yes.
But they throw out our bread is still one of the cheapest in the region.
Hmm.
And people say, well, if that's the case, let me try to pay for it. And that's what they do to the minor and the poor all the time. I
Yes.
want to say to the poor, I don't believe that. Our bread is one of the cheapest. How come you say that and you stop there? Why you say our bread is one of the cheapest? Look, for example, in Barbados, the same sandwich loaf is this amount. Compared to ours, look at how much less ours is,
Hmm.
right? And no country call out, all here is ours is still one of the cheapest in
Yeah.
the Caribbean. That is all. And then people going to pull back and think, well, we don't expect it to be the cheapest. So if it's still one of the cheapest, it's good. And that is the technical foolishness they've been conditioning people with here. They're denying people. They're using whatever sense or knowledge they have to persuade people to become dumb, and those who are already close to that to become more of that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But the only piece of sense you can have is when those same fellows show up on a platform,
Hmm.
you must have the sense to go and vote for them.
Yeah.
Go and vote for them. Go and vote for them to suffer. Go and vote for them to embrace poverty. Go and vote. Let me tell you something. I believe in the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And just as I believe in the people and I have confidence in the people of Trinidad and Tobago, just as I have confidence in them, I want to say this. I also have confidence in the people of Trinidad
Yes.
that just as Tobago have demonstrated intelligence, the people of Trinidad will do that too
Hmm.
until the situation is corrected.
Hmm.
You can't sit back and hope. You just can't sit back and hope. You have to stand up and take action. This
Yeah.
is something you have to lead yourselves out of.
Hmm.
You have to get up and lead yourself out of this. I
Yeah.
want to commend some of the people in Lavantil
Hmm.
who are saying enough is enough. This
Exactly.
stupid talk has been going on for too long.
Hmm.
That is all they're getting, promises and absolutely nothing.
Hmm.
Where that will take you,
Hmm.
how that will help you.
Exactly.
And plenty of them, they're just sitting down, having a fool. I want to repeat that, having a fool.
Hmm.
Tell them, make them feel something is coming. Something is coming. What promise you'd right round the corner? Calling people and making them be forever carrot dancers. That's what they're doing to all.
Yeah.
Every time you go to act up the rail, they wave the carrot to tell you, close boy, you're stupid. You only make that move, you lost it. And
Hmm.
the dangle carrot and you pull long. Here we're telling yourself now, well, but after I waited so long, next thing I really get this thing next week, I do something stupid now and miss out. And so now you tell yourself, you ever play in the lotto or play away for a long time, you're minding a mark. It has come a time you just can't pull out.
Hmm.
You're
Yes.
minding the back too long.
Hmm.
And because you're telling yourself, no, if I don't play it now and then I come, I go ball, I go ball. So you know you do? You give up your lunch money and you go and play again, only to lose. Only to lose. And
Yeah.
when it's 4 o'clock coming around in the evening or 6 o'clock again, you ain't had no money. You're hustling now, you're teasing. If anybody can lend you $5 at least, because you want to play that mark, it must come.
Yeah.
And by the time the mark comes, when
Yeah.
you win it, when you win the mark, it is not even 1% of the money you put out
I
to
tell
win.
you,
You,
yes.
you understand? I
Yeah.
mean, and then you're laughing and you say, oh, no, I win it someday. And the
Hmm.
day you win it is $1 you had, and that's where you play.
Yeah.
So you get 24 $20, but you
Yeah.
spend about $2,000, $3,000 on it. You understand? And then they tell you, say, so I'm saying that to say, people end up in that negative spiral
Hmm.
when they are over invested. So
Hmm.
what they did is that they promise people stuff. Remember I said, I pull out of that earlier. They
Yes.
promise people stuff, right?
Hmm.
And they carry them down the road year on year on year. Just had them and you stay quiet, eh? Behave
Yeah.
yourself. You see looking at it, your thing about to come in. Your
Yes.
thing about to come.
Hmm.
And they know what they pull back and they don't want to talk to nobody again. And you go on silent for another year or two.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
as they're about to act up again, they say, you see how it says get trouble? I did last week. I did week all the time. But who telling you that? I want you all to hear this.
Hmm.
The man who telling you that, or the woman who telling you that,
Hmm.
they in a job. They getting their money, their perks, and their family getting contract, all kind of thing. They living well every single day. They're living like Christmas Day and more,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
And but they know you suffering, and they
Hmm.
know you want to live a little peace like how they are living. And from the time they see you looking to make a move, they run to you, you know. I
Yeah.
came to look for you, you know. No, I was asking people come on, and then they come up with stupid talk. I realize you might be missing this, and they come up with something they know you can't get before 6 months. And they said no, they can't go forward until they get that. They know they're not helping you, you know. But they come now instead of helping you and send you down another rabbit hole, you know. So now you're going to spend the rest of your resources. You have to try to get that thing. By the time you get at, cabinet reshuffle, the minister change. They said, "Baz looking at it all the time, but I'm
Hmm.
not there anymore." You understand? I'm
Hmm.
not there anymore. But I'll see if I can talk to the new minister. You don't know him? Why
Yes.
don't talk to him and tell him, talk to him now, talk to her. Or if you can't, I'll call her, I'll see what I can do. Yeah, I'll go work on it. And as soon as you go on, that's the
Hmm.
end of that,
That's the end of
That's
it.
the end. That's the end of that. And
Yeah.
people go outside and whistle,
Hmm.
scream, and jump to end up with that,
Yeah.
That's not what they're jumping for,
Hmm.
That's not what they expect to get. But that's what they get year after year after year after year. That's what they get.
Right. Right.
And the amazing thing is that people go right back there.
Yeah.
Take exactly
Hmm.
unbelievable,
Hmm. I tell you, man.
unbelievable stuff.
Hmm.
You understand? Highly, highly unbelievable stuff. I
Hmm.
tell you. Oh my dear me. Opening lines and take some calls. Let's see if we can get ourselves ready while I try to switch over on the laptop
Yeah.
before Mr. James come in. Yeah.
Okay, good. So call us people at 222-8255, 612-8255, or 866-525-1099. Give us a call. You've been listening, give us a call, and let's hear what's your take on the situations that continue to unfold here in Trinidad and Tobago. The way we are being treated by the politicians and the people who are in those corridors of power. I don't know if they I don't know what's going on. Good afternoon, my good friend. How are you?
Hey, what's going on there, gentlemen?
Cool, man. Everybody's
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
all right. Well, sorry, Mr. Well, I know Mr. Noray is busy organizing
Mhm.
guests and stuff like that, but I wanted to ask him a question about something, a very significant thing he said
Well, he's listening.
about.
He's listening, right?
Oh, okay, okay. Well, all right. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Noray. I wanted to find out before this Ukraine Russia war.
Hmm.
What I mean, I know they play a significant part with food production. But is Ukraine like the major source of food, grain, wheat? You know, the reason why I'm asking is because um, I know like in Trinidad,
Mhm.
your source for flour and wheat and stuff normally comes from North America, which is Canada
Yes.
primarily, and maybe even the United States.
Yes. Yes.
And even when the United States, I never see anything really
Yeah.
with made in Ukraine. And even though they may,
Mm.
not do a finished product,
Yeah. Yeah.
something isn't adding up here.
Hmm.
So it's not only indigenous to Trinidad where people will find us scapegoat. Remember back in the days of George Bush,
Yeah.
everything was blame Bush, right?
Yes.
And then of course now with this joker, Sleepy Joe we have here who needs training wheels to even be on, in office to do the job.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Blame Trump, but Trump's not there anymore.
That's right.
Or blame Putin, and then what happened? Blame Ukraine, blame the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So something in adding up because, as I said, I can't believe that the Ukraine is a significant source of the food basket for the entire world. Something that's definitely in adding up here at all. Because
I tell you.
I remember when embargoes were placed against China and even Russia for wheat farmers, grain farmers, and other farmers out here in the U.S., when they put an embargo against these two countries, the farmers out here in the U.S. were crying out and saying, "No, that's not fair." Putting up their hands in the air, right? So something in making sense. You guys see what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand very well.
Yeah. So anyway, but you know what? What in the darkness will come out to the light eventually.
Exactly, my brother.
It will.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. You see, in Ukraine, that was the hottest bed of corruption when it came to political cronyism, and on both sides, the West and the what do you call it, the socialist, communist blocks and stuff, right?
Yeah.
That was a hotbed, Ukraine, right? And I think the war in a way, the Biden family kind of glad at that, because a lot of evidence must get blown up.
Yes.
Because even Zelensky was under major investigations, right? And his name keep popping up. The great hero. So anyway, but as I said, something is adding up here, because you can't tell me, this is a very big world, and you can't tell me that, okay, that Ukraine has a monopoly on the production of wheat, and stuff like that. Something is wrong.
I know.
Okay, have a good day, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. You're so correct. I didn't even realize I could have mentioned that I've never seen anything made in Ukraine reach here. But I know they can be passing their raw products around, and manufacturers would buy the raw material and then say, well, it's made in USA or something like that. But it's difficult to understand that we have to go through that in this kind of situation that we're in. How come? I can remember as a little fella, I didn't used to hear anything about our wheat and thing coming from Ukraine. Something is definitely wrong there. Anyway, I see at 5:56, Mr. Winford James, political analyst, is now has joined us on the set. Okay, Richard is probably making a change to his from his phone to his laptop, so let's just hold on in the meantime. Just gotta let you know that Mr. James is online with us at Power Monitor Digital Thursday. Alright, so in a short we're gonna link up with Winford James, a political analyst, and yeah, maybe he can shed light on some of those things we were speaking about. But I mean, like I said, and I'll continue saying, my good buddy and co-host and colleague of the morning show said they're anti-citizen. I will go with that. They don't seem to ever want to make things easy for us at all. Just pour on more and more pressure. I don't know if they seem to think that it's okay, man, them could take pressure. So they turn up the pressure, turn up the pressure, turn up the pressure. And something is definitely wrong somewhere or the other. So let me see, I have an unknown caller calling in here. Good afternoon, Mr. Unknown Caller.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, my brother.
And I've been paying attention to what's taking place in Trinidad and Tobago, because I'm on the outside looking in.
Okay.
And I am depressed to know that when I check, it's 80% right through the country. Everything is in a mess.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if they say, Bob Marley said the big fish just eat up the small fish.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is the case here with somebody undermining, because it does not make sense. And also the good book says, my people perish from lack of knowledge.
Yep.
We have so much that we can do for ourselves. I understand that they have a new cassava there they call the MX something.
Yes.
which grows in a shorter period of time.
Yes.
No, we have to try and invest more in stuff like that, and look more towards local farming.
Hmm.
Because you see the game playing in the worldwide market.
Hmm.
There's a test game going on out there,
Yes, yes.
you know. But I'm really concerned as a fellow Trinidadian.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get it. I believe that this is a time for the country to pray.
Hmm.
Because if nothing else is working, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, enjoy the program, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, my brother.
You're welcome.
Yes. So you see, it's bothering people who are even away from Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, me too, if I was living on the outside, I've been trying to wonder what's happening. And like you said, you don't know if some kind of undermining going on or whatever. So Richard is back with us. Let me make sure that he's up and running on the system here. Mr. Winford James is with us, Richard. Oh, okay, we stand by.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Would you like to welcome him? Or you want me
Yeah. Just give me a few seconds. I'm just correct this first. I'm gonna come on.
Okay. Is it Dr. Winford James? I don't want to be calling him man without giving him his title. You know,
Yes, but it is doctor. It is doctor.
Okay. So let me don't fall short. I hate doing that. You know, where I came from, you can't do that. You know? So, Dr. Winford James, let me say a very special good afternoon to you, and it is a pleasure to have you here with us on the After Work Line, Power 102 Digital Thursday. And I know you're going to share with us a lot to keep us some more knowledgeable as we are right now. So, you know, at the end of this interview, I know we're going to learn a lot more from you. So, good afternoon to you, sir. Stand by, folks. Making sure it's A-OK. Yes, our special guest, Dr. Winford James, political analyst. He's one of my favorites. Eh? Good afternoon, doctor, and how are you?
I didn't name. Thank you. Mark, is that?
Yes, David McIntyre. On this system, you'll see Daddy Mac. They call me all kinds of things.
Welcome.
Yes. Richard Noray is our host, and he's here with us. Good afternoon, Richard. Dr. Winford James is on with us.
Hello, thank you, producer Daddy Mac, and good afternoon and welcome, Dr. James. How are you?
Thank you, Richard. I am strong and good.
All right. That is very, very nice to hear.
Yeah.
We wanted to discuss to get some perspectives on a number of things. One, Tobago, where it is at this time after the elections. The overwhelming victory. I remember seeing you on the television on the night of the election, and you were saying you were the only person who was at that time predicting that it was going to be a clean sweep. You know, you were saying all. At that time, the PDP had about 10 or 11, and I was saying, but oh my dear me, I'm not seeing that, you know. And just a few minutes later, it went all the way up. I heard it was all 15. Then it dropped to 14-1. So I said, Mr. James really understood the people of Tobago to be so informed to make the type of virtually accurate statement. One could say you were, you know, almost entirely correct based on the outcome, 14-1. How has Tobago been since then, Mr. James, in the political context and the advancement of the people against the backdrop of what they experienced before with what was happening with the sea transportation, and what they went through before they got the new vessels, and whether things have changed? We have heard that the economy was shut down. It was self-induced. The government, in taking not the best quality decisions, caused the economy of Tobago to shut down and so on. If any of those things were true, have we begun to see a turnaround?
Before I answer the series of questions you've posed to me,
Yes.
let's just observe that when I came onto the program and I agreed to come onto the program, it was to discuss the budget that Farley Augustine presented today.
We will get around to that too. Naturally, we would want to try to touch on some of the other topics. Also, what we wanted to discuss when they asked me if I wanted, I said yes, I would like Mr. James on. Would have been to discuss the budget, the economy. They may have shared with you also, Melissa, the reaction to the trade unions and what has been taking place nationally. Those were some of the issues, including Mr. Farley's Augustine's budget today.
But I just needed to alert you to my understanding. Right?
Yeah.
Begin to answer the series of questions. Is that we must first observe that it's just 6.5 months that the new government is in office. And they have had to get accustomed to the state of affairs, get us various status reports on the finances of the House of Assembly going forward. They had to put boards in place. They had to take care of some urgent matters that arose from the time when they were not in government, but which needed to be attended to, whether there was a new government or an old government. So they had to put these things in place, right? And not discounting the need to appoint secretaries to position, appoint a presiding officer. In other words, they were getting involved in the basic nuts and bolts of government, setting up the infrastructure, so to speak. And then at the same time, of course, focusing on some of the more urgent matters that needed action. And then, of course, they had to prepare a budget for fiscal 2023. Now, lots of stuff that they have talked to us about. They have talked about the indecent levels of expenditure the previous PNM-led House of Assembly engaged in on the eve of the elections. So they have talked about that. They have talked about the need to do things differently, to fix quite a number of things that they thought and still think they can fix easily. So they had to identify those things and, of course, send money behind them. They needed also to talk to their publics about how they would go about running the government for greater democracy. So I mentioned three things there. Those are some of the things that have been engaging the attention of the new government of Tobago under the leadership of Chief Secretary Farley Augustine. Now, if you want more particulars on any particular thing, you would have to ask the question one at a time, so that we can the listeners will have an expectation and a focus, and I can perhaps do justice to the question being asked.
Yes. So let's go to the budget today. What was your general reaction from it?
Well, compared to previous budgets, it is an ambitious budget. It's asking for more monies than previous governments in Tobago have asked for. Okay, so that's the main thing. The second thing is, it's not a PNM budget. PNM budgets, all of them, have been budgets that sought to align themselves with the budgets of the so-called central government. So there was an assumption of a shared approach to budgeting for Tobago shared understandings with the leadership in the cabinet with respect to, what should happen and what could happen. So I think you have to understand those 2 or 3 basic considerations. But it was a bigger budget, and the formula that it has used is more objective than we have seen in the past. The formula that they have used is to go back to the scale in accordance with which the cabinet of the country should transfer monies to the Tobago House of Assembly for recurrent expenditure and for development expenditure. And this new government in Tobago, has used the 4.03 to 6.9 scale in accordance with which to calculate what Tobago should get. And they have started not at 403 or at percentages that are close to 4.03. In other words, not by starting at the bottom of the scale, but by starting at the top of the scale. So they have predicated the budget on the higher end of the scale, which the PNM government had access to, which they could have used, but did not, never used. So they have gone to the head of the scale, the top of the scale, and which is 6.09, and calculated their requests for recurrent expenditure and for development expenditure in line with 6.9% of the national budget. And that is one of the big things, of course. It's quite different from the way in which PNM-led House of Assemblies, or Houses of Assembly, I should say, have calculated their budget. So 6.09, bear that in mind. And the Chief Secretary is also the Secretary in charge of Finance, Trade, and the Economy. The Chief Secretary has said that the 6.9 is not fixed. It is not a settled position. It's a starting point. And so all the other things are proceeding from the calculations that are based, when we go to the estimates of expenditure and so on, come from that embrace of something that is legal, because it's the Dispute Resolution Commission that was invoked by the first Chief Secretary of the House of Assembly, Uchoi Charles. Uchoi Charles went to court to get a ruling from the court with respect to what how Tobago's financial needs must be determined, how they must be calculated. So that is still law. Nothing has changed. There are expectations, I want to tell you, there are expectations in the population in Tobago of a revision of that scale to include some allowance for the fact that there is oil and gas in the seas closer to Tobago than to Trinidad, which can be disaggregated as a basis for saying Tobago should have a bigger slice of the budget. I have said a mouthful there, didn't intend to, but I believe you have a basis there to continue, Mr. Richard Noray.
Yes. PNM is in central government. This has always been an old discussion. When one party is in central government and a different one is leading Tobago, how would they reconcile their differences in order to ensure that Tobago gets what it deserves to be able to administer the affairs of the people properly in Tobago. This approach, it's good, and Tobago does deserve a lot more. And I would say that without any hesitation, and they deserved it for a long time. Tobago is not a place where you just have people there and they depend on the people of Trinidad or the economy of Trinidad to get something for them to say across there, live on that until we can do better. Tobago have their own aspirations, the people there. They have their own dreams, their goals, and they have skills and talent too. And they need the support of the government, as we do in Trinidad as well, so that you could become all that you would like to become as you move forward and contribute to the development and advancement of the country, and in this case, Tobago. And that's why I'm saying they deserved a lot more for quite some time. But how do you see this administration in Tobago being able to get the support of the government in a way to achieve the things that they would like to accomplish?
Well, I'll talk as if let them to your audience with respect to how that can be done. First of all, I don't think they're looking for reconciliation in the traditional sense of the term. What they're looking for is acceptance of the differences between the two islands, acceptance of the fact that for a long time now, Tobago has been looking for equality of status and self-determination within the Union of Trinidad and Tobago, and that there's a level of impatience with the slow pace of acceptance of those dreams, of those indications. But it's not reconciliation as if we can forge an approach that says Tobago must move in concert with the cabinet, or even that the cabinet must move in concert with the Tobago House of Assembly. What we are saying, or what they are saying, is that you need to accept the fact that Tobago is a special case, to go back to language that used to be used at one time. Tobago has its own dream of running its own dreams of developing the island in accordance with the understandings and the desires of the population that lives on the island. So I just want to say that there might be need for people to consider that it's not a matter of making peace in that sense of reconciliation. So we've got to do that. But apart from that, they have also set up, or they are going to set up, an office in Trinidad to accommodate the Deputy Chief Secretary's office. The location has been identified already. It was identified in the budget speech. So that Father Augustine, the Deputy Secretary, has been given the responsibility to bring home the desires for equality of status, self-determination, greater autonomy. He has been tasked, or his office has been tasked to do that sort of thing. So, quite apart from predicating the budget on 6.9% of the national budget, quite apart from the fact that there is a strong and irresistible, to my mind, drive to get Tobagonians doing the sorts of things that the fifth schedule of the existing Tobago House of Assembly, and of course in relationship to ideas that have post-dated the development of the fifth schedule, right? We have a budget that is expressly going in a direction that no other budget in living memory has gone. So I just wanted to let that be placed on the record, be placed on the table. Yes?
Yeah, how challenging, you are a political analyst and one of the persons whom I tend to pay a lot of attention to. You say it's not reconciliation in its traditional sense,
Yes.
but it's more that of acceptance.
Yes.
How likely or how challenging you believe it would be for the type of acceptance that Tobago would want to have so that they could get the things to work the way they would want to have it to work? How likely is that acceptance is in terms of the likelihood of it being achieved?
Yes. Nice question. It's more likely than unlikely to be achieved. Or put it this way, it's I did not say that. It is more unlikely, given historical trends, that such dreams will be accommodated than otherwise. We don't have a history of accommodation, easy accommodation of Tobago's aspirations. So there's got to be, shall we say, a political fight. There's got to be the use of science to make the case for Tobago's accommodation of Tobago's ambitions. There's got to be a political fight. And there's going to be the use of science, as I said, to come up with the description of the economic basis of the whole country and of Tobago's contribution to the wealth of the country. And it's got to be unrelenting. It's got to be consistent. And it's got to be, shall we say, an approach which they cannot let up on. The history tells us the government will not easily concede, will not make concessions easily at all. So I would say there's a political fight coming based on the history. Now, if something has happened in the meantime, and the cabinet, the current cabinet and those to follow, is paying attention to the argumentation being made and cannot rebut, because it's going to be extremely difficult for any cabinet to rebut the arguments that Tobago has been advancing to take care of its own upkeep and so on, based on what it contributes to the national coffers. Yes, we are going to have a fight on our hands, which I decry in advance, in anticipation, because of the amount of energies that have been poured into making the case for seeing Tobago as walking side by side with Trinidad. You understand what I'm saying here?
Yes, yes.
There has to be engagement along the lines of what the stakeholders in Tobago need. There's got to be an engagement in relation to what the facts, the economic facts on the ground and in the sea are like, what they are. Good. And hopefully, as people like to say, good sense will prevail. But it's not, it is more unlikely, to answer your question in brief, it's more unlikely than likely, based on the historical record, that the accommodation that Tobago wants will be granted.
Right. So what you are saying, in other words, it's going to be it's potentially going to be a steep climb for Mr. Augustine and his administration to be successful. And I believe it will be. Yeah. And we know why, because at the end of the day, it's a fight for the minds and hearts of the people in Tobago. Yeah. Because if this government should support them the way they deserve to be supported, the government would actually be putting itself out of political business in Tobago. Because then they would be saying, look, this new
It did
party has come. Go
political
on.
business. The last election, the December
Uh-huh.
election, put itself out of business, to use your language.
Mm-hmm.
And there are parliamentary elections due before the next House of Assembly elections. So there is that, the political argument. But I
Yes.
prefer to rely on the economics of it. Now we are able to show how by granting Tobago what it wants, governance in this country will improve. The economy of Tobago will improve. Yes?
Yes.
Now, don't get me started on why Tobago has remained as stagnant and as static as it has since the Union in the 1880s and 1890s. Don't get me started on that, because the economics of the argument are clear. They are clearer today than they have ever been, right? And this business of this cabinet of the country legally riding roughshod over Tobagonian aspirations will be resisted. Hear me on that matter. And there are many young people who are not as, shall we say, as easily accepting of the directions from Trinidad as their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and other ancestors have been. Yeah? Because...
And that's one of the...
Hmm?
And that is one of the positive takeaways that we could have from the generation, the young people today.
Yeah. And
that
the
impatience they have is a benefit
yeah,
to themselves and Tobago. Yeah.
A lot of them have the number of Tobagonians now seeking tertiary education has jumped than in over previous years. So they know, they understand the arguments, they understand the comparability and the competitiveness of their qualifications vis-a-vis those of their Trinidadian counterparts. They can see no reason why their Trinidadian counterparts should rule over them in the way that Cabinet has been doing, given the access to the same universities locally and abroad. So that's the point, Tobago, for example, has been asking for an expansion, a broadening of the economy in Tobago a long time, to break the cycle of Tobagonians in their late teens, that is to say, after A-levels and after Cape, have to leave the country, leave the island in search of, better pastures than the island has been able to offer. And there is a movement, I think, certainly an idea, a belief, that will resist the continuation of that state of affairs, the depopulation of the island of its brilliant minds, right? Because the society and the economy was deliberately not expanded in order to make them stay. And of course, to achieve, as I said earlier, an improvement in our economic fortunes, rather than having this dependency on Trinidad, which has been unproductive and which it has been actually humiliating in one sense of the term. We could have had a long time ago a Tobago that was pulling its weight in terms of the perception that it was contributing to the national coffers. Now there's this view that we are mendicants. We are looking for handouts every year from the Minister of Finance, and people get the idea that the wealth of the country has been created by the island of Trinidad only, not Tobago. But that's not true. and that will be resisted. I don't think that narrative can be turned around. I think that's a narrative that will stay. So that is why I said that there's going to be a political fight if we are to follow the historical record. Yeah, there's nothing in the record that.
So this political fight, which I could foresee, will be a major political fight, but it's a fight that is necessary. At some stage, that fight had to come, as if not Tobago will be kept as it has been for many more decades to come.
If the cabinet could be more progressive, then there would be no need for that kind of fight. What is the basis for the cabinet, the various cabinets of the country, continuing to dominate almost to the point of exclusion, except of tokenism, except you are invoking tokenism into the equation? Yes? If you're not involving tokenism into the equation, then what is the argument that you have heard from the cabinet as to why the governance arrangements that exist now in this country should continue to? What is the argument that you have heard?
No, I honestly have heard no plausible argument for it to continue to be as it has been for quite some time. None. And therefore the change is necessary. And therefore I'll put on record that the cabinet does not have, as we know it today, what I could consider to be an acceptable argument to say, allow the state of plain Tobago to stay as it is, and as it has been for many years. And what they have put forward falls short. You spoke about you want the time, I listened to you some time ago, and you too would want to grow your own tree or live under your own tree. Something to that effect. Remember that?
Yes, I remember. I wrote an article in it as well.
And I'm happy to know that you're associated with the administration over there, because while Mr. Farley is quite a decent and articulate young gentleman, and Mr. Duke is very different, it needed more, something of a more material nature that is more robust in terms of intellectualism. And I think you and Mr. Vanos James and others have brought that to the party across there that could make people, other people who would not have looked at that party in Tobago, stop and take another look at it. And I believe once we continue to be associated with people like you all, and if more like you all could join that party, I think that party could be in for a very long, successful run or journey. And it may be able to turn a lot of stuff that need to be turned around in Tobago actually turned around, because we'll need some time to do that, but we'll need people like you to contribute. But what I would want to know though, apart from the young people and their impatience, meaning that they wouldn't tolerate what their parents have and grandparents did for decades, I see that as a plus, a benefit, that they wouldn't do that, and I believe that. What else that Mr. Augustine and Mr. Duke have that can be used as political weapons to assist them to get the acceptance of what they would like to have for Tobago?
Well, the most obvious thing, asset if you wish, that they can invoke is the size of the electoral victory in December last year. The one that you started off talking about, by the way.
Yeah.
They won 14-1. I mean, that is unprecedented. 14-1, but it had to be unprecedented in the sense that 15 seats only became available last year. I mean, I know the PNM has won all the seats in at least on at least one occasion. So it was not unprecedented in that sense, right? But to have a party as young as the PDP, what, 3 years, 4 years for the most, don't remember the dates now, wiping the floor with the PNM, a party that is in control of government, and a party that has ruled both Trinidad and Tobago longer than any other party. That is a triumphant, that is an overwhelming expression of popular rejection of the PNM. So that's an asset. Of course, they will have to make sure that the asset remains in place and that it is used to give value to the people of the island, by which I mean have them participate in better governance arrangements than have been possible legally. They are possible politically, but they're not possible legally because the Constitution and the Tobago's of Assembly disallow that kind of politics. The governance arrangements that I'm thinking about, how the House of Assembly, the legislature of the House of Assembly must be configured and so on. What is the role of the executives? Do you want an executive that is as big as the current executive is and as all the executives of the previous PNM government were? So the question of governance arrangements must be one of the things to focus on, given the size of the electoral victory. So that is something that they must use as, if I understand you, as a political weapon against the PNM. Another weapon they can use is the extent to which people in the diaspora are willing to, people who have been exposed to the way developed countries run their affairs and who know the backwardness of Tobago in terms of government and other things. They are lending support to the new party. So that's another weapon. People in the diaspora who are willing to, well, not who are willing only, but who have been lending their support to building the new Tobago. But they're doing it so far, most of them, from abroad. Don't forget that all of us in Tobago, all of us, have lost our children to other countries in the world, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
I have lost a daughter to the Cayman Islands, for example.
Right.
When I go back to Tobago, I was born in Tobago East in Belgarden. And I realized that every time I go.
Well, we have something in common, Mr. James. That was my home. That's where I grew up.
In Belgarden?
Yes. I lived opposite the Anglican school right there, not too far from Zion Hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Richard, we'd have to talk.
I think we'd have to do that sometime. Yes.
Mr. John London and Miss Tina London had a shop there.
I remember opposite. They were directly opposite the Anglican school.
And then you had Purcell Lewis and the girl Blackman who married the guy Mill.
Yeah, and then you had Mr. Willie John directly opposite Zion Hill, a little shop there.
All right. Up the hill.
No, he was down on the main road, opposite where they'll come and sell fish on the corner there, on the main road.
Remember that.
He had a little Willie John.
I know Willie John had lands up in Zion Hill, top Zion Hill.
Oh, okay, right. And the back of his place is where you go down there to get to where we used to call level.
And he had a son who was a fireman, a fire officer.
Yeah.
And one who was somebody working in the Department of Works, I think, in Tobago. I know all the people. Yeah. But the point I was going to make is that every time you go, you're missing a generation of members of a generation. They have gone.
Yeah.
They've gone to the Southwest or to Trinidad or to some islands in the Caribbean or to United States or to America, to England and to Canada. Because these big countries understand the value of people who are trained at the tertiary level to the development of their homeland, of their space. But in Tobago, the reverse has happened. You allow these bright students to leave after they finish A-levels. Good. You prepare another one. It's done successively. You prepare, and the same thing happens. So the island does not retain the minds that are capable of developing it. Because, because of the poor economic infrastructure that successive generations have had to deal with, and for their own survival and for their own dignity, and their own self-respect, they have had to.
The quality of the quality of the retained human resource is not the best quality to advance the island.
But I see the point you're making.
Yeah, no, they all contribute and important,
Yes.
but you'll need those bright people who, as Professor Arthur Lewis said, spoke about brain drain.
Yes.
Those people have been allowed to be attracted abroad.
Yeah.
And when they leave, what they did by leaving is deny the island its potential through them.
Excellent.
To take it to a different level.
Excellent.
And that has contributed to why Tobago has been set back for so long. As I was saying just now, it's good to have minds like yours and your brother, or I know people have said it's your brother. It's not. I hope you all are brothers.
No.
Okay, but it's people like your minds that have caused other people to look at this party in Tobago and probably say, yes, we could look at this again and perhaps try this and see, and they didn't. And it will need more like you to support those others to help move that party forward. But it's not the party I want to look at. I want to look at the people of the island of Tobago, because they deserve better. And the youngsters over there would be looking to people like Mr. Farley and Mr. Duke to lead the way with your support and others like you to give them better opportunities in the future, so they could become something of greater value. They are already valuable, but of greater value to their own island and to the world by what they could do and create, and the type of employment jobs that they may be able to create in the future. But what has happened, and you have touched on it, you ask what argument they could have, the cabinet, to keep it as it is. The one argument they could make, but they cannot express it, is that they need to control the people of Tobago. And by denying them what they need to assist themselves to advance the island for themselves, they don't give it to them. They are denied that, because if they begin to do what they could for themselves, the people who wish to control them would automatically have surrendered the control that they wanted to have over them. And I don't know if it's a situation now where one believes, if we lose control of the island over me, then I'll come across as the weakest leader we ever had. I wonder if you understand. So once I am there, they could never get away, because I cannot be less than those who preceded me. And to me, it's a strange type of thinking, when you should have the joy, especially, and I'll say it as the Prime Minister that we have, coming from Tobago. The joy he should have to help move the people of Tobago forward, that we have not seen, is shocking.
Well,
really shocking.
I like what I just want to add something to what you said. That's a little addition, and it is that as part of the control argument, you have the fortunes of the PNM being bolstered by control of Tobago in the country overall. The PNM is in a dead heat in Trinidad, or has been in a dead heat in Trinidad for some time. Tobago bails the PNM out when national.
And that's a fact. Because if the 2 seats are removed, then what will be the political outcome?
But it's not only, it doesn't stop there, Richard.
Yeah.
When you look at the population, the electorate of Trinidad, it has been swollen to some extent, maybe to a large extent, by Tobagonians who have come down to Trinidad for better opportunity. There are a lot of second and third generation Tobagonians in Trinidad.
Yeah.
Right? So you have Tobago and Tobagonians in Tobago who they want to control. And you have Tobagonians in Trinidad who they want to control as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You follow what I'm
And
saying?
what is sad, and what is sad, some good quality ones have fallen to that trap.
Yep.
And instead of, they use the intelligence, the knowledge to help Tobago, they surrender all of that they could do for Tobago to live a better quality life down here for themselves and their family.
Yeah.
And therefore drop the consideration of the bigger picture. And I've seen that, and it's sad. Sometimes I have to wonder, where's their Tobagonianness or spirit?
Yes. It's been affected by the acculturation process. When you get intertwined with a new society, so to speak, when you get intertwined the new generation, and you have a family, and the children grow up and they have families and so on, what do you think is going to happen? If a fella is in the United States, a Tobagonian, has had a good life, sees the possibilities of development, he has a family, the children become Americans, right?
Yes.
And those children will have children in due course who will be second, third generation Tobagonians in America. So you will have Tobagonian Americans. They are not coming back to Tobago to live. They are coming back to Tobago to visit, for rest and for holidays.
Imagine what could have been their life if they were born in Tobago and how they would have been.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of the continuation of the generation. They're not coming back. I mean, I know I spoke about the diaspora Tobagonians being there to help. Because they want to stop the tide. They want to turn the tide. But if they were to come at this time back to Tobago, they would be underemployed, underfinanced, undercapitalized in respect of their plans. That is how, shall we say, dangerous and maybe heinous a development. That you empty an island every year of the people who are doing the best, and they run and they don't really come back. They go out and they meet other people and they form different alliances, right? Of course, some come home back, but they're in the minority, right? They build new homes, right, in the new places they've been to, right? So the country is bled every year of some of its best. We can't escape the brain drain argument. We can't escape it. And the question is, how do you expand the economy to allow them to stay and to allow them to quickly come back? The PNM has never had any policy to turn the tide. It has continued to do what it has always doing, to let Tobago depend on Trinidad. That is what the PNM has done.
Yeah.
And people are now kicking up. They're pushing back. They're pushing back.
Yeah, I want to say another weapon that they would have to try to get the acceptance that they're in search of would be to have speakers like you, Dr. James, to make the wrongs in Tobago. That's a very serious thing,
Yeah.
To make the wrongs in Tobago.
Yeah.
And explain this to the people of Tobago in a way that they could understand.
Yeah.
And
I could do
and
things.
What would happen is
when
Tobagonians start listening to people like you on a broader scale, where the whole country could come to that realization about what is happening, you would see the pace politicians who are in control now will run to join you all, to make it appear as though you all have been doing what they were trying to do, to piggyback on it. But the bottom line is that it would fast forward the progress at a pace that is necessary to help the people of Tobago.
Yes,
Helping meaning to help them become what they should have become a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because their parents, their family, their ancestors earned that already, but they
Yep.
have been denied. That's why they've been leaving, and the brain drain that our talented youngsters have fallen trap or have fallen prey to.
Yeah.
Some of it hasn't been that impressive, you know,
Yeah.
but it's just something looking a little better was good enough to make them leave. Whereas if people like you make the wrongs in Tobago and help them see what Tobago could become like and what it would mean for them in Tobago to stay and help develop the island, I am telling you, if that is done on a broader scale, where we could cover it here in 102, other media houses to get involved so that the message will become more known and more readily acceptable to the people of Tobago, they would start to behave in a way that naturally will discomfort politicians who always fight to keep it in every possible way different to that way in which it can become. But the people must see it and understand what it could mean for themselves and their advancement in the future. I want to touch on two other things, Mr. James, before we close off. Dr. James, I would make a statement on the first one and then I'll ask you a question. The second one has to do with the trade union, how should I say, what they demonstrated the other day. The crowd seemed to be growing again, and the implication going forward.
I'm just the vote of no confidence.
The vote of no confidence, yeah. But before that, I think something highly unfairly was done to you, and I spoke about it here several times. Okay. Now that you are here, I want to repeat it. You took up a position in Tobago on a board, I am told.
Yes.
And when people started wanting to condemn and criticize you in a way to suggest that you are no longer objective and people shouldn't read your column, and so on and so on and so on and so on. If that was the true standard by which you're going to assess someone, then everyone who acted on a board before, who declared themselves to be professionals over the decades, then all those people have now been negatively affected and aligned with both the PNM and UNC and NAR.
Right.
Because when those parties, whenever they put people on boards, when they are in charge, you know what they said? What they say to the country? No, being on a board is not a political position. We're trying to attract the best minds.
Right.
You haven't heard it before?
I have heard the argument. Yeah. It's a hypocritical argument.
It is a huge one. And I want to say reject all the persons who have uttered that and any other who wants to do that. Because to me, it was the most unfair position and type of thing to say about one of the, perhaps, I view you of one of our leading minds in this country.
Thank you.
Because you have taken up a position to help your island to move forward. You want to give back. You're using intelligence to help move the island forward in a way that you believe, and many others, you're not alone in that, believe that, you know, the island was heading in the wrong direction and there's a better direction for it to head towards. And because you accepted a role to make a contribution to take the island in that direction, people have begun, some, just a few pure politicians, to put out that you cannot listen to this gentleman again. I want to say to our listeners today, if you used to listen to Dr. James, then nothing has happened for you to stop listening to him. What you need to be concerned about is what is being said or has been said, and by whom those things have been expressed. And ask yourself what they said when other professionals took up boards under their administrations at different times in the life of this country so far, from independence, 56 coming all the way up prior to independence, right? Those people were able to retain their professional status, but you must surrender yours and be viewed as only now a politician who is a PDP. That is so unfair. So I want to tell you, I think you have treated with that sensibly, which is what is expected. I don't think I've heard much comments coming from you on that a little.
No.
And I think that was the best way to treat with that. Ignore it and it will die a natural death. Because
Right.
to me, it really did not mean much. The people who were saying it, they knew differently. And with that knowledge, they still spoke the nonsense that they expressed.
Yeah.
And that was most disappointing. And what they did in the process was to reveal to people like me, they are people whom you cannot trust. Because
Right.
some who were talking, I
Yes.
knew they themselves came to the camera and on the stage before and said, no, this is a professional. When the Petrotrain board took the decision to close down the refinery and send all the people home, you remember that?
Yes.
You know what we told? The board is a professional board, you know.
Yeah.
And they took a business decision. You didn't hear that?
I heard that.
Those people weren't viewed as politicians. They were viewed as sensible businessmen, professionals who were taking business decisions in the interests of Trinidad and Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They weren't politicians. But you have accepted a position, a role in Tobago to help your island, and you are not like them. You are something else. So I think that you dealt with it, to me, quite effectively, and so much so that I believe it died a more sudden death than they possibly could have imagined. And I don't want to resurrect it. That's why I wanted to make a statement.
Yeah, but
So
I
ask
appreciate
you to respond to it, because if you say something, it may give a whole new life to it. It's I who said it, so forget it. I want to switch over now to the final part, Dr. James.
Yes.
What is the potential future implication for what has started to develop in this country, where it appears as though, coming on the heels of what happened in Tobago, the 14-1, like that momentum is shifting towards Trinidad.
Okay.
I've observed now that the crowds are getting bigger, and they're against the quality of the governance of both Trinidad and Tobago from the central government side of it.
But I accept
How
that.
do you see it playing out in the future? Yeah.
That opening statement is absolutely correct. Of course, it needs to be expanded. But yes, there is a disaffection, a growing disaffection by former supporters of the PNM with the party. There's a growing disaffection. People are not impressed that the policies and policy approaches developed and taken by the PNM, the current PNM, are the right ones. And some of them have come back to haunt the Prime Minister and his cabinet. Like the Petrotrain decision was a very bad decision, as you can see in retrospect. You can see it more easy. But even before we had the constellation of forces now that allow us to more stridently say it was wrong to close Petrotrain, even before that happened, more perceptive among us were saying, but no, this doesn't make any sense, right? Prime Minister pushed on the less though. And now we are finding a labor movement that tried to accommodate the PNM, tried to live with the PNM by collaborating, despite, of course, the natural enmity between the trade union movement and any cabinet. We find that former allies and supporters of the PNM have lost faith and are now dissenting and are now disaffected by the kind of government we have. Now, I am not saying this because I dislike any of the political parties or leaders. I'm just going by the policies they have used and how they have backfired. So the question now, though, that the country faces, or one of the questions certainly, is when you rid yourself of the PNM in Trinidad, who do you replace the PNM by? Obviously, it's the other mainstream party. But the other mainstream party has not come up with counter proposals. They have stated their disagreement with the PNM, of course, but they haven't come up with the kinds of politics based on counter proposals and effectiveness and so on in terms of the implementation that could persuade allies of the PNM to switch loyalties or to come across, to move off the fence and swing towards the UNC. Because people are, one of the elements of the dissatisfaction of people, even supporters of the PNM, is race and ethnicity as bases for political support. And while in a fundamental sense, that's not a bad thing, yeah, one gets to the point where one can criticize one's natural political affiliation in the interest of better governance. So what I'm talking about here is that while Rowley and the PNM star is waning, yeah, is wilting, yes, but the UNC is not on a high. There's a lot of disaffection also in the UNC camp. And then we come to the consideration of whether a third party, which we went to in 1986, whether a third party can have the appeal to attract people who are disaffected with the PNM and people who are disaffected with the UNC. And what is that third party? But the supporters of a third party are supporters are gaining size as well, and they are becoming more vehement. So there is something happening that has not shaped itself sufficiently clearly for one to predict. But one can clearly say that there's a lot of feeling against the PNM in an almost unprecedented kind of way. So I don't know where the politics is in flux now, it seems to me. It's in flux. And things will happen that will upset the apple cart or the pomsite cart, if you wish. Things will happen. And it has to do with a certain tiredness that the population feels with the ideas of the PNM and the modus operandi of the PNM, and a certain tiredness that the population feels with the UNC as well. And there's, cutting through all those changes is a creeping, and perhaps a more than creeping, is an accelerating rejection of ethnicity and race as determinants of the people who should best run this country. So the third party argument is still alive, although there are no third parties that have recommended themselves to the PNM, to the population as replacements of the PNM. So yes, I think that motion of no confidence was a good political move by Roger and the OWT and the rest of Labour. Yeah. And I think when push comes to shove, the PNM are going to lose some support in Trinidad. And when I say lose support, I mean lose some constituencies. And then we will have a government of the UNC, which perhaps we will not be satisfied with, based on what they are doing, what they are moving as politics, what they are espousing as, or allowing the population to feel is alternative politics. People want substance, they want meat, right? They want respect, they want dignity. And we have a politics in the country of followership. People are following what their leaders have to do. And that brings us to constitutional reform and the need for the people to be in the parliament to help, shall we say, review the ideas of the cabinet, right? And to allow the country to arrive at better conclusions, at better approaches, as a result of their being in the legislative chamber, to help, shall we say, help the elected people do the work that they were put there to do, provoke them to good work, so to speak. But we don't have that change in the parliament. We have a cabinet-dominated parliament, Richard.
Yeah.
And that has not helped us at all over time.
It hasn't. You said a lot there, Dr. James.
Too much.
No, but you have captured it well for our listeners to get the type of picture and takeaway that they perhaps stayed on to get, and I believe they got it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to thank you. Because I know we just ran over 6, we tried to stop on time because we have the news. And
Right.
I'd love to ask you for the last word, and because we're already over, I'll ask you for the last word still.
I'm okay with that. You can use my last statements as the last word. That's okay with me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Dr. James. And you have shared a lot with us. And I believe with people like you involved, what Tobago has been seeking for so long, that your presence have brought them significantly closer to it. Continue the struggle and the fight, and you'll get that tree that you would like to see. You could you own and you grow under, and you can live under. Thank you, Dr. James. It was a pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of the good.
Same to you.
Thank you, Dr. James. Thank you, Richard. We go straight to the news. Yes, sir. Well said. I absorbed everything like a sponge.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yes, folks. So that was Dr. Winsford James, political analyst. And I tell you, we heard a lot that we can surely cherish and help us to move forward. Not so, Richard?
Yes. I think he was brilliant.
Always.
I think he was clear. He's one of the leading minds we have in this country.
Yes.
And we have to reach a place where we must learn to honor and revere, the people who are deserving of that type of recognition and treatment and so on. And Dr. James certainly is one of those persons who should be viewed in such a way. That is why when he speaks, he attracts a lot of people coming at him. And the reason they go at him is because they say, no, you're too bright and sharp. You're going to win minds. You're going to turn people against us. So we need to silence this fella, this gentleman.
Yes.
And
sad, allow that.
Yeah, it's not the best type of politics and so on. It's something we could do without, and use the knowledge and gifts that we have, and harness it in a way for the betterment of the country and the people of Trinidad and Tobago as we try to propel this country forward in its advancement, so that we would stop losing, as Dr. James says, so many brilliant minds leave the country on an annual basis. Every year, schools, graduation from the universities and so on. Yeah. And then when you talk to some of those who have gotten their first class honors degree and so on, tell what we're going to do now. Well, they're heading to America, England, France, Germany. So as soon as they get it, look at my son, a decent doctor, and I'm trying to get him back home. He's finishing up, one of the areas he's specializing in. And when I talk to him, he
doesn't sound like he's gonna come home.
Yeah, his problem is the types of techniques.
Yeah.
No, not the opportunities, but the systems they have. That they use to administer care, medical care to people in that country. Whenever he comes in, he sees what they do. He believes we are so far behind. That it will take so many more like him to really come and make the type of impact that may be required. And it might just be a mindset, he said, because the people here have the skill. And that alone tells you when he is coming home. But just telling you, when we're having those types of conversations, he should be excited. No, he is. But he's not that excited to say, he's prepared to drop and run back home.
Yeah.
He will give the government really need to put this system in place and that, so that he's really out for giving the best health care. But as he concluded, whether we have a good system or no system, he'll come back here and apply his skills and knowledge to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and help them in which or whatever medical way that he can when he returns. And I appreciate that. That's what we need. So I want to thank Dr. James again. We go to the news.
Yeah.
We'll discuss some more about what he said after the news. Yeah.
Good, great. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. News straight ahead with Sparkle McIntosh.
Power 102 Digital. Yeah. We sound like home. Power 102 Digital. Streaming 24/7 on power102fm.com and on the Power 102 Digital app. Power 102 Digital. This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
With your news to 6 p.m. here on Power 102, I'm Sparkle McIntosh. Good evening. There is a view from political analyst Dr. Winford James. More work has to be done to expand the economy of Tobago, which will help bring more benefits to the sister isle. During an interview on the afternoon power drive here on Power 102 Digital, Dr. James reflected on today's budget presentation by Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Fali Augustine. Dr. James has said he remains confident there will be a push for Tobago to step up its efforts, especially from young people, to strive for excellence in the governance of the island and to not accept substandard leadership. The Kiss Baking Company today announced its intention to increase the cost of its products by 11%. Kiss, in a media release today, said its price increase is as a result of the National Flour Mill's 33% increase on wholesale flour and 28% on retail. Kiss said the price adjustment will take effect on July 1st. Meanwhile, wholesalers and retailers are being urged to be reasonable in their markups in light of the increasing food prices, especially on basic items. The government is also assuring it will closely monitor the situation to ensure the welfare of citizens, the poor and vulnerable, and the wider society. The appeal was made by Minister of Trade and Industry Paulo Gopiskun at today's post-cabinet media briefing. The Student Support Services Division of the Ministry of Education is reporting it is seeing success in treating with students displaying mental health issues. Education Minister Dr. Nian Gadsby-Dolly says there are several measures in place to help students treat with issues such as fatigue, social isolation, anxiety, and stress, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Senate was told, with very few exceptions, each school has an assigned guidance counselor and school social worker. Government confirms monkeypox has been added to the list of dangerous infectious diseases, as was done with COVID-19. This will allow the government to invoke the powers under the Public Health Ordinance and Quarantine Act to isolate and treat suspected and confirmed cases. This information was put forward by Minister of Health Terence Dialsing in the Senate today. In St. Lucia, former National Security Minister Herman Gilt Francis has suggested round-the-clock police patrols and drones to combat a wave of gun violence in Vieux Fort. Noting a recent police operation in the community, Francis said such initiatives must be sustained. He spoke on Wednesday night during the DBS television program Newsmaker Live amid several fatal shootings in the southern town and this week's indiscriminate gunfire blamed on rival gangs. Ukraine and Moldova have both been granted EU candidate status, President of the European Union Charles Michel has announced. Ukraine applied days after Russia invaded in February, and the process moved at a record speed. Its President Volodymyr Zelensky hailed today's decision. I'm Sparkle McIntosh, and those were some of the stories making the news to this time here on Power 102.